everyone, Jane here. Thank you so much for watching today and welcome to everybody. Today I am going to be using my Etchr sketchbook. Now this is the A4 landscape version. I bought this a while ago. It was on a really good price at the time on Jackson's Art. I think they were having some kind of sale of some of the older Etchr sketchbooks. I'm not quite sure because it was a lot reduced. I don't know what's happened to the prices since then. They've probably gone back to normal. And I thought I would do something really watercolory today because the Etchr sketchbook is 100% cotton and it is, I think, 200 and something GSM. It's a really lovely paper. And I decided that I wanted to do something with wishy-washy colours in the background. And I divided my page up into 4 sections. So this is just one of the A4 pages. So my palette is actually sitting on top of the left-hand page of the journal of the sketchbook. I'm sorry, I interchange journal and sketchbook. To me, they're more or less the same. And I decided because I had 4 sections, I would go with the 4 seasons. I thought that might be quite fun. So it would give me a chance to play with all the different colours. So the first one was spring, so that's got the yellows and the bright spring greens and the blues. And then this next one I'm just doing is summer. Now you see me blotting some away because I was reaching into, I just thought it was an orange, and as I'm using it I'm thinking this is more sort of an autumnal colour, and it was actually quinacridone gold. So the paints I'm using are at the bottom half of my palette, are all Daniel Smith paints today. Now I am not going to list or tell you all the colours because I was just dipping in. I was looking at my my swatch card from the top and choosing the ones that I felt went with what I wanted. So I wasn't overly focusing on which colours I was using, as in their names. I was just going for ones that I thought would look good for those seasons. So the summer one, I went in with the pinks and the reds for the warmth of the sun. And then in the autumn square, or sorry, not square, rectangle, which I'm doing now, is the sort of, I use golds and browns, and the darkest one is sepia. But I just wanted to get a sort of a mix. And I'm just laying down a lot of water on the page to start with, and then adding in my colour because I wanted to do a bit of wet into wet and I wanted the colours to blend. Now this last one is winter, so I'm going in with the cool blue to start with, then I go in with a bit of a deeper blue, and then I also add in a bit of lavender just to add in a bit more of that cool wintry sort of feel. And after I stop the video in a minute to move on to the next section, I do actually go in and get rid of some of them big puddles, because you'll see in the summer there's a big puddle of water. I decided that I wanted to use some stamps. Now, if you are a really confident with sketching, or not, you don't even have to be confident with sketching. If you're quite happy to sketch onto your different sections, then of course that is something that you could very easily do. But I have a lot of stamps. I would quite happily sketch, but I do have a lot of stamps and I like to use them. So I got out a selection. So this first one is a bird from Rubber Dance, and it's from a set called Textured Birds. Let me just check. Yes, Textured Birds. And I'm using a Versafine Clair ink, and I'm using Nocturne black for these first 2. That is a waterproof ink, so that will work well with the watercolours in a bit. Now this second stamp, this is the first time I've inked up this stamp. I bought it in a real, like a sale. It was like a clearance sale in a big barn. We went to, I think, last year, and this is the first time I've inked it up. So it is a little bit paler in the inking because it was the first time. Stamps generally need a few times of being used before they really sort of come into their own. So if you ever buy a stamp set and you stamp it out and you think, well, that's not very good, then just be aware that if you stamp it a few times, often if you stamp it with something like an archival ink that will stick to your stamp a bit more, then that really helps to provide a key. And as you can see from the leaf I just stamped, which is a really well used stamp, and these ones here, they stamp a lot clearer because they are well used. So the more you use your stamps, the better they will stamp. So the leaf was from Be Crafty. I think it was the oak leaf set. I'm not going to link any of these products. I'm just going to list them in the description box, as I usually do with the things I've used, because if you've got similar, you can use similar. And if you want to find things that are similar, you can always just search up the term, because obviously we are all in different countries and some companies maybe don't produce certain things anymore, and because the things I use are from my own stash, they're things I've had a long time. Generally I've bought myself, so I don't know whether they're still available, but I still want to use them because, you know, that's the point, isn't, you know, I'm not going to stop using things just because they might no longer be available, because there are always other things that can be used instead. Now, the snowflakes were also from Be Crafty. I think it's Yuletide. I've got them here. Yuletide Doodle Art. It might be called Snow Flurry or something like that, I'm not sure. And I used the Versafine ink in, I think it's Acorn for the leaf, and I used Midnight. No, I don't think it's Midnight. I think it's called Twilight for the snowflakes. I wanted to sort of go with the theme of the background and the theme of the season. So all I'm doing now is I'm going back in with the same watercolors, using mostly the same colors that I used in the background. Now, as you can see, you can layer up your watercolors by making sure one layer is dry, then layering up onto the other. So now this is what we would call wet onto dry technique, because the background is now dry. So I'm getting more of a solid colour going on in my images, and I'm mixing my colours a bit into each other still, especially with the leaf, because I want it to really look autumnal. And I just go through each one and just colour them in basically with my little Velvet Touch brush. once I'd made sure that this was now all dry, I went in with some pens. Now, I started off by going over some of the lines on this Art by Marlene stamp. I don't know if I told you the name. It's Floral Escape, this one. Because it hadn't come out quite as well as the others due to being a brand newly used, as in wasn't brand new, but you know, hadn't been used. I decided to just go in with my Unipin pen just to add a few of those black lines back in, because the thing is, when you've got nice sketchy doodly images like some of these stamps are, it is very easy to go in. So even if you stamp and it doesn't come out quite as you want it to, you can always go in with a Fineliner pen and add your own lines back in. No one would know unless you told them. So I'm going in now with my Copic Acreas, and I just picked out, well, initially I picked out the black, the gold and the white. I didn't actually use the black because I used the Unipin instead of the black, because I felt that the black Copic Acrea would be too thick for those lines in the stamping. And I'm just going in, adding little bits of gold where I feel it looks like it might need it. There's no what's the word? No rules as to how I do this. I just add where I'm feeling it at that moment. And I think that's one of the nicest things about creativity. You just do what you feel at the time, because it's your project, so you can do whatever makes you happy. So I'm just adding in the gold, and then I go in with some white as well, just to add in some little highlights. So I just realised after I'd finished that section that my poor little bird looked like it was just floating in midair, which I suppose they can do, but I wanted it to be on a little branch, so I went in with my sepia Copic Acrea, and then I am adding in a bit of stenciling. I could have left it as it was and just added on my sentiments at this point, but I do like a little bit of extra interest. So I thought as well to tie all my seasons together, because at the moment they're four very distinct sort of images. I wanted something that was the same on all of them. So going in with this stencil, which is a Be Crafty Dinkable, I think it's called Chain Link or something like that. And just a little bit of white acrylic paint. It's the Amsterdam. Just means that each of my sort of pictures has something similar. And again, I then felt it still needed a little bit more, so I wanted to add some splatters. Now, usually I go in with my gold ink from Winsor & Newton, but I thought I'd try and use my Posca pen. It is sometimes a bit tricky, but if you pump your pen a bit and then you tap it, you can get some quite nice little splatters. And again, that was then the same on each one of the pictures. And then I'm just removing my tape very carefully. I actually didn't get any tearing, so sometimes if you do worried about that, add a little bit of heat with the heat tool, something like that, just to gently warm it, and just pull it very flat when you're pulling it off, and that will help to stop any tearing. And then I'm just adding from the Tim Holtz clipping set I found for sentiments that sort of I felt went with the seasons that they were going to be on and representing. So that, I think, is more or less the end of the project. So thank you ever so much for watching today. If you have enjoyed it, do please give it a thumbs up. And if you can see that hype button, if you could hit that too, that's really helpful. It doesn't cost anything to you, and it just helps to let YouTube know to promote my videos out a bit more. If you haven't subscribed already, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button as well, if you feel like you'd like to see more videos from me. Also, at the end of the video, you will see a list of my lovely super supporters who are my YouTube members, and I will put a link in the description box if you want to find out more information about becoming a member. So thank you ever so much, and until the next time, bye bye.